Hello, folks. Welcome back. This is Chris in Central Pennsylvania. I saw Newspod, Isak's program from the 10th of March, 2025. He had a guest on, Ivan Meyer from the Democratic Alliance. He's the federal chairman of the Democratic Alliance, and he talked about the refugee status for South Africans. Now, I'm not going to claim that my Afrikaans is 100%. Ek praat nie Afrikaans nie. Maar ek verstaan. Normally, I at least understand most of it. So I did listen to it, and I did ask someone to tell me if I got it incorrect. So if I've got it incorrect, then I've been misled by someone else, not just by my poor understanding of Afrikaans.
Baie dankie Isak en baie dankie vir die voorreg om hier te praat. Ek dink daar is 3 groot aannames. Die eerste aanname rondom die hele gesprek gaan dat mense en boere se eiendom word op groot skaal onteien. Daardie aanname is vals. Die tweede aanname is dat mense word uitgemoord deur die staat en veral minderheidsgroepe. Daardie aanname is ook onwaar. Die derde aanname is dat mense moet vlug vir hul veiligheid. Dit is ook onwaar. So Trump het nou Suid-Afrikaanse boere en spesifiek ook wit mense dan vlugtelingstatus aangebied in die FSA. Maar Isak, ek het bietjie gaan kyk, wat is die definisie van 'n vlugteling? En Isak, hier is die definisie van 'n vlugteling. A person who has been forced to leave their country in order to escape war, persecution, in ander woorde vervolging, or natural disasters, and most likely they cannot return home or are afraid to do so. So dit is die definisie van 'n vlugtelingstatus en Isak, soos jy weet, ek noem dit want 'n mens moet weet wat gaan in Suid-Afrika aan en onthou 'n vlugteling is per definisie in terme van die Verenigde Nasies iemand wat in 'n vlugtelingkamp moet gaan bly. Nie gaan boer op 'n plaas nie, jy woon in 'n vlugtelingskamp.
Anyway, in this, he talks about different reasons why it's not applicable. It's false for South Africans. And I'm here to tell you that Mr. Meyer is mistaken. He's reading the room incorrectly. He's reading the tea leaves incorrectly. And I'm not sure why that is, but let me just cover this very quickly. So, for instance, he talks about the refugees and the status of who they are. And he gives a definition that's an international standard. I'm not sure where he's drawing from. But the U.S. standard for refugee status is very specific, and it has nothing to do with international. Yes, it gives a guideline. But the United States specifically indicates who qualifies for refugee status. And the following applies. Under United States law, a refugee is someone who is located outside the United States. That would include those who are in this community. Is of special humanitarian concern to the United States. Donald Trump's executive order of 7 February 2025 makes Afrikaners who suffered unjust racial discrimination to be people who are of special humanitarian concern for the United States. The mere fact. Section 1 purpose of his executive order, in shocking disregard of its citizens' rights, the Republic of South Africa has recently enacted Expropriation Act 13 to enable the government of South Africa to seize ethnic minority Afrikaners' agricultural property without compensation. Now, what Trump doesn't say is that this is about property and it's broader than that and affects all South Africans, but not germane to the conversation. This act follows countless government policies designed to dismantle equal opportunity in employment, education, and business, and hateful rhetoric and government actions fueling disproportionate violence against racially disfavored landowners. Now, that is stated in here, but it goes beyond that. I'm not going to talk about Israel and Iran. That's part of this. But this applies in Section 4 to Afrikaners in South Africa who are victims of unjust racial discrimination. Therefore, these people have been identified as a group being persecuted by the government of the United States, by the President of the United States. And therefore, they will automatically qualify for it, most likely once a program is announced. So on to his point about who the refugees are located outside the United States, of special humanitarian concern to the United States, and someone that demonstrates that they were persecuted or fear persecution due to a race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or membership in a particular social group. Well, that will likely not be necessary as a consequence of Donald Trump's executive order, which identifies this group of people, Afrikaners, whatever the U.S. government defines as an Afrikaner, as having been persecuted. Therefore, while they are welcome to prove their situation or prove their genuine fear, they likely will not have to do it under the law because they fall under category for priority under existing Immigration Nationality Act. Also, they have to be not firmly resettled in another country, and they must be admissible to the United States. So I'm not really sure what's going on. Now, Ivan Meyer, if I understand the video correctly in the interview, talks about the UNHCR and refugee camps and people being refugee camps. That's not applicable here, ladies and gentlemen. That is not applicable. That's incorrect information. This is a unique situation, not an unprecedented situation, but a unique situation. We've done this before. It's called in-country refugee resettlement. And what that means is that a normal refugee is what Mr. Meyer was alluding to. You leave the country out of fear for conflict or persecution. You go to a neighboring country on the border. You go into there and you seek refugee status. You're granted protected status as a refugee, and you normally go through the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees and register with them. That will not be necessary in South Africa's case, most likely, just as it wasn't necessary in-country refugee resettlement programs like the one that was occurred in Cuba and another occurred in Bosnia and Herzegovina, for example. So this is a unique situation. I'm not really sure where Mr. Meyer is getting his information or if he's simply reading what international norms are, but they do not apply. For the United States, what applies is not international agreements, it's what our law says. And our law is governed by the Immigration and Nationality Act, INA, of 1980. Under which we've remitted 3.1 million people as refugees in this country since 1980. And if and when this is opened up to Afrikaners, however that's defined by the U.S. government, I'm sure that we'll see more people come over. Right now, the entire program is suspended, the refugee program, since the 20th of January by Trump because of massive corruption by the Biden regime. This executive order on February 7th overrides that for South Africans once the State Department of Homeland Security established a program. So Mr. Meyer is mistaken. I'm not sure where that comes from, but you will not be put in a camp. You do not have to be in a refugee camp to qualify for refugee status coming from South Africa. There will be no refugee camps in South Africa. There will be no refugee camps in America. They're not eating the dogs. They're not eating the cats. They're not putting people in refugee camps. That's a misnomer. It's not accurate information. And you will not have to apply for the status through a refugee camp because no such camps will exist for South Africans in South Africa. It's impossible for those camps to exist because you can't be a refugee inside the borders of your own country. All you can be inside the borders of your own country is an internally displaced person, an IDP, not a refugee. That's a legal status. And the United States is willing to confer that legal status on a group of people from South Africa whom the president has determined to be persecuted unjustly based on racial discrimination. We'll have to wait for the specific identification. One would imagine that potentially it would be to ethnic minorities in South Africa, which would include whites, coloreds, English speakers, Afrikaans speakers, coloreds, Indians, and even some black South Africans. There you have it, folks. I'm not really sure where people get the information from, but this is a matter of public law. It's readily available. You can find this information from the United States Customs Immigration Service. You can find it online with Google. It's U.S. code, piece of cake. All right. Thank you very much. Cheers.